It has not changed, right? So go. How's things going? Everything's going well? What? I'm trying to be fancy today.
Staff, are you ready? Good. I'd like to call to order the October 7th, 2024 Richland County Planning Commission meeting. Staff, please confirm the following. In accordance with the Freedom of Information Act, a copy of the agenda was sent to the news media, persons requesting notification, and posted on the bulletin board located in the County Administration Building. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Thank you. Staff, can you please take attendance for today's meeting?
All right. Attendance for the Monday, October 7th, 2024 Planning Commission meeting. Yankee,
Here.
Frierson, Johnson. Here. Duffy,
Here.
Metz, Tarrant.
Here.
Taylor. Here. Serks. Grady. Okay, we have a quorum.
Thank you, staff. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the October 7th, 2024 Richland County Planning Commission meeting. As planning commissioners, we are concerned residents of Richland County who volunteer our time to thoroughly review and make recommendations to County Council. Our recommendations are to approve or deny zoning map amendment requests. Per Title VI, Chapter 29 of the SC Code of Laws, Planning Commission may also prepare and revise plans and programs for the development or redevelopment of unincorporated portions of the county. The county's land development code rewrite process conducted last year is an example of this. Once again, we are a recommending body to County Council, and they will conduct their own public hearing and take official votes to approve or deny map amendments and text amendments on a future date to be published by the county. Council typically holds zoning public hearings on the fourth Tuesday of the month. Please check the county's website for updated agendas, dates, and times. Please take note of the following guidelines for today's meeting. Please turn off or silence any cell phones. Audience members may quietly come and go as needed. Applicants are allowed up to 2 minutes to make statements. Citizens signed up to speak are also allowed up to 2 minutes to speak. Redundant comments should be minimized. Please only address remarks to the commission and do not expect the commission to respond to questions from the speakers in a back and forth style. That's not the purpose of the meeting. Please no audience speaker exchanges. No audience demonstrations or other disruptions to the meeting are permitted, nor are comments from anyone other than the speaker at the podium. Please remember the meeting is being recorded. Please speak into the microphone and give your name and address. Abusive language is inappropriate and will not be tolerated. Please don't voice displeasure or frustration at a recommendation while the Planning Commission is still conducting business. If you have any questions or concerns, you can contact Richland County Planning staff down below here. This now takes us to item number 3 on our agenda, which is additions and deletions. Are there any motions for additions or deletions to the agenda, commissioners? We did notice a typo on the second page, third page, where it says, it's supposed to be zoning public hearing. It's just the text that explains what's happening. It says owning public hearing. It's just missing the Z. So.
Which page was that?
1, 2, 3.
Okay.
Just for future agendas, probably. I don't think we need to do anything else in the agenda today for any changes? No? Okay. Move on to number 4 then. The staff provided the commission with copies of the transcript of the commission's September 2024 meeting. Do commissioners have any comments or concerns regarding these transcripts? Okay. Hearing none, the chair makes a motion to approve the minutes unless there's an objection. Do I have a second? Thank you, Commissioner Durant. With a motion and a second, staff, please take a vote to approve the minutes.
All right, those in favor of the approval of the September 5th, 2024 Planning Commission minutes. Yonke,
Aye.
Johnson, Duffy,
Aye.
Durant,
Aye.
Taylor.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you, staff. Moves us on to number 5, the consent agenda. The consent agenda is an action item that allows the commission to approve road names and map amendment requests where the staff recommends approval and no one from the public is signed up to speak against the amendment, or no member of the commission is in need of further discussion on the request. I took a look through the sign-up sheet here, and we have some amendments that were recommended approval by staff. So I would like to make a motion to just remove cases 5B3, 7, and 9. That would leave all the other cases that were staff recommended approval on the consent agenda, making our recommendation approval to County Council. Commissioners, any discussion on that? Okay. So I'll say it more formally as a motion. I'd like to make a motion to Move forward with the consent agenda. 5A, road names. 5B, 1, 2, 4, 5, 6, and 8. Do I have a second?
Second.
I got a second from Commissioner Duffy. Hopefully that makes sense. Staff, can you take a vote? Commissioner Johnson? Yes. Anyone come in late and want to speak on any of these properties? The ones that we will be discussing tonight would be Ross Road, 5B3. 5B7, which is Congaree Road, and Ridge Road, 9. Those are the ones we'll be talking about. Did I miss anyone? Okay. So with a motion and a second, staff needs to take a vote.
All right, those in favor of the consent agenda as presented, Yonke,
Aye.
Johnson, Duffy,
Aye.
Durant,
Aye.
Taylor.
Aye.
All right, the motion passes.
Thank you, staff. So we will begin tonight with 5B3, case number 24-035, MA. I hand it back over to staff, please.
Our first item is case,
We noticed on the agenda on page 27, when you get into the packet, that the
tax map number.
project number is 21-015. That's got to be incorrect, right?
That's correct. Yeah,
Okay.
Well, there are two typos on that we'll make the correction on.
Okay. Thank you.
Actually, it may be. That's correct. Correct. That project number should be 24-035 MA.
As we wait for you to begin, one more explanation, the consent agenda. I know we just ushered 6 properties as approval. That then goes to county council as recommendation of approval, and they'll be looking at their next meeting, right?
That's
Mr.
correct.
Price, what's the date on that?
That will be the 22nd of October.
Thank you.
The typo, the fact that it says approval for staff recommendation.
Yes, sir.
We're going to give staff a few minutes.
I apologize, so if, one more correction, 29, page 29, under the conclusion. Again, it does say approval, it should be disapproval. And it actually should read, the proposed rezoning is not consistent with the objectives of, outlined in the comprehensive plan under the first sentence. And under the second paragraph, it should be further approval of the rezoning request would not be in character with the existing commercial development patterns. Okay, so again, apologies for that.
About the second sentence.
That's what I was saying, it would not be in character.
Very second sentence.
Oh, second sentence, sorry.
Paragraph.
Yes, sir, it's not, yes. Okay, Rick? Okay, thank you.
Yes, thank you.
All right, so, you know, so apologies for that. Your first item is case 24-035MA. The applicant is Robert C. Lee. The location is 511 Ross Road. The applicant is requesting to rezone a little less than an acre of land that's currently zoned general commercial to residential transition, known as RT zoning designation. You will note that this parcel was previously rezoned, and I think that may have been part of the confusion that we have, but it was previously rezoned under case 21-015 that was referenced earlier to general commercial. To have been in 21. So this particular area falls within the mixed-use corridor. The mixed-use corridors provides vertical, horizontal mix of suburban scale, retail, commercial, office, high-density residential and institutional land uses. Looking at the proposed request, it would not be supportive of those recommendations. Thus, staff recommends disapproval of this request. And again, for the record, it is staff's recommendations are based solely on the guidelines and recommendations of the comprehensive plan.
Okay, thank you, staff. Commissioners, any questions for staff? Yes, Commissioner Taylor?
Page 32. Packet. Subject property seems to be
Again, that should be general commercial. That should be red. Again, I'm not sure what happened with that one, but it should be red, general commercial.
Thank you.
Mr. Price, what was it previously before general commercial?
Yes. this-
Before 2021?
Before 2021, it was zone D1. Yes, it was zone D1, and then that became rural. So during the time that the original request in 2021 came before the Planning Commission and Council, the subject parcel was zoned rural, and they made a request to rezone it to general commercial.
I'm looking at the sign-up sheet. I don't see anyone signed up to speak. Okay,
I did not sign up, sir. I didn't think.
you can come on down to the podium. Give us your name and address. We'll give you 2 minutes.
Thank you, sir.
Yes.
Yes, sir. The name's Robert C. Lee. I own the property. It was originally my father's property, had a mobile home. The driveway does not meet commercial requirements, the width requirements. And so I filed for, I was gonna put my business there. I don't need to do that anymore. I want to take it back to where I can put a mobile home and put my father-in-law there. The driveway, it goes across a pond dam. You can't make it any wider. So as a commercial piece of property, I was told that you couldn't put a business over there.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Oh, yeah, did you see your address?
I'm sorry.
Yes, thank you.
511 Ross Road.
Excellent.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Was there anyone else with this property? No. Okay. Okay, Commission, this is now on the floor for discussion. Staff, would you mind turning on the zoning layer for the map? That one's correct. Thank you. F, what happens if a parcel's not suitable for its zone?
You mean for development purposes?
Yes.
It's just there. If the parcel can't be developed, I mean, that doesn't change the zoning. The zoning will still be there. And it may be a use that's, could be, located on that parcel is established. If not, you may have a case where a rezoning request may come in, such as what you have today.
Is that RT to the north of it?
Yes.
Mind zooming the map out, like one click? If there's not much of a discussion, any motions?
Question, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Durant?
Yeah, I just want to make sure I'm clear here. The parcel at issue is being sought to be changed, to have its zoning changed to RT, which is similar to the parcels that are to its north and part to its west, correct?
That is correct.
And staff has concluded that making this change would not be consistent with the comprehensive plan. Those properties to the north that are already RT, are they consistent with the comprehensive plan?
No, sir. Not from a zoning standpoint.
Commissioner Durant? And staff, these conclusions come from the future land use map and the comp plan?
Yes, sir.
Staff, for the other parcels that are RT, those are residences currently?
They seem to be commercial. Can you zoom in on those? Actually, it looks, they're residential.
Commercial with a swimming pool?
They're residential.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Looking at the map when it's zoomed out, it looks like it's like a mixed use area, kind of as a stretch. I know lots of different colors. Are you pulling something up, staff?
We're just kind of taking a look at the existing commercial structure that's kind of east of it. I was trying to get the date of that use being established. Can you check the assessor's information? Keep going.
Do we see that image again?
We're just kind of looking at kind of the history of that adjacent parcel, when that may have been established.
As it looks like you're showing over time that this area has been commercialized. That might not be the best word, but developed. And that went in accordance with the comp plan, correct?
Yes, sir.
Looking at the map, my opinion would say that this looks like that flag lot is in character of the surrounding residences with the water feature in the middle versus. Hear me? I cut out. Okay, thank you. But by day, I'm a map guy, and looking at the map, that's what I see. I'm gonna lean on my commissioners though for discussion or a motion.
Chair,
Yes, Commissioner Durant.
just to clarify what you just said.
Yes.
You're saying the parcels to the north of the parcel at issue is residential in nature?
That's what it appears to be. And I see as you zoom out the map, there's lots of residences in the area as well, making it in character. I'm happy to discuss if anyone doesn't see that.
A question for Mr. Price.
Commissioner Duffy?
Is there any reason not to move forward with the proposed rezoning to RT, aside from the comp plan? It being out of character with the comp plan, is there any other major red flags on your end?
No, sir. Is that the flood? Is the flood on? Yeah, put the flood zone back on. All right, move it up a little bit. Okay. Yeah, the reason why I was asking Mr. DeLation to kind of look at this, so when you're, a lot of times when we are looking at the specific designations of the future land use map, again, there's no specific boundary for those at some point. And it looks like the area that we do have identified as the mixed-use corridor is right near that edge of where it would also be, neighborhood medium density also. So it doesn't, because if you see where 277 comes in, Tom, can you point to just 277? Just right up in here, in that area where Mr. DeLaze is pointing, that kind of almost like the breaking point from the mixed-use corridor to the neighborhood medium density. Now, again, if that area was deemed to be neighborhood medium density, staff's recommendation would again still be for disapproval, again, because of the density that's being requested would not coincide with what the comprehensive plan is recommending for that area. But just goes to show you from a commercial kind of area to a more residential, that line is really not that far. So I guess, Mr. Duffy, to answer your question, probably not.
Thank you, staff. Commissioners ready for a motion? Commissioner Durant.
Mr. Chair, I move that we move project 2435 MA along to county council with a recommendation of approval in that it appears to be consistent with the character of the land use surrounding it.
Thank you, Commissioner Durant. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Commissioner Duffy. Thank you. With that, we can take a vote, please. Staff.
All right, those in favor of the motion for the approval of case 24-035 MA, based on the request being consistent with the land uses of the surrounding area. Those in favor, Yonke,
Aye.
Johnson, Durant,
Aye.
Taylor,
Aye.
Duffy.
Aye.
All right, the motion passes.
Thank you, staff. That's a recommendation of approval. County Council will take that up on the 4th Tuesday. That meeting is October, what?
22nd.
22nd. Thank you. So now we're going to jump down to case number 7, which is case 24-039 MA. I'll give it back to staff.
Next item is 24-039 MA. The applicant is Joy C. McMillan. The location of the request is 1140 Congaree Road. The applicant is requesting to rezone just a little bit more than 4 acres from HM, which is Homestead District, to RT, which is Residential Transition. Again, based on the location of the property, which falls within our neighborhood medium density designation of the comp plan, the proposed request would not be consistent with any of the objectives and recommendations for that designation. Thus, staff recommends disapproval, again, based on the findings of the comprehensive plan.
Okay, thank you, staff. Do we have any questions for staff? Okay, hearing none, we'll look at our sign-up sheet. Commissioner Durant, could you read the names?
Yes, Mr. Chair, we have one person signed up to speak for us, the applicant, Ms. Joy McMillan.
Come on down, please. State your name and address.
I'm Joy McMillian. I actually reside at 1172 Congaree Road, which is the adjoining property. And my request is to change the property at 1140 Congaree Road from the HM to the RT, which is what the majority of the surrounding properties are zoned. However, the only property that's not zoned that RT around it is my personal residence. So the primary reason for trying to get it rezoned here is because I would like to purchase a piece of this property at the 4 acres. And the owners have agreed to sell it to me, but they can't based on the zoning requirements, unless it's changed to the RT. And it's a hayfield. It's strictly agricultural. I've been farming it for close to 20 years. Or my father and I, and my husband.
Thank you. Thanks for coming down today. Are there any other names?
No, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Commission, this is on the floor for discussion. I have a question about the density for this. How many units? And we're talking about a small parcel here, but
Excuse me,
out of curiosity. Yep.
For the HM, for every dwelling unit, you would need to have 1.52 acres. Under the RT, you would need to have 1 acre.
With this being 4 acres for,
Right. So just depending on how it
Units.
would be subdivided, you couldn't subdivide it and create, yes, sir, I think it's just how it's gonna be subdivided, was the issue.
zoom the map out a little bit. Your thoughts, Commission?
Question for staff, Mr. Chair.
Yes, Commissioner Durant.
Staff, this parcel at issue appears to be surrounded on almost all 4 sides by properties that already zone RT. Is that correct?
Yes, sir, majority of the parcels, seem to be zoned RT.
And reasoning for the staff's disapproval of this is that it's not consistent with the objectives for the rural land use designation outlined in the comprehensive plan. Would that be the case for the other surrounding properties that are already zone RT?
Okay, so based on the future land use map, all of the parcels in that area are actually non-conforming according to the comprehensive plan. Just based on their zoning. The comprehensive plan recommends this for more high-density, development, so probably something along the R 2, 3, and 4, maybe even, a bit higher. Yes, for this particular area. However, I think we went over this last month where, comprehensive plan has designated an area. However, the established character, goes against what you may see, for the recommendations of the comprehensive plan also.
Just another question, Mr. Staff. Price, as we said, almost all the surrounding properties to this parcel is already zoned RT. And so they're essentially non-conforming, correct?
So if you go back to the, comprehensive plans. Right, so if you take a look at, where the arrow's pointing, and that brighter shaded yellow, so all of those parcels there, fall within that designation of yellow, and that is for neighborhood medium density. I wanna go back to our former zoning designations, but all of the parcels that were formerly rural, that eventually, that based on acreage, became either AG, RT, or HM, would not be in compliance with those recommendations of the comprehensive plan for this area.
Oh, stupid question maybe, but with all the other parcels surrounding essentially being in non-conformance, what do we do? Just leave them that way?
Well, we're gonna get to this later on in the agenda. But we will, again, I think that's gonna be part of the process. And again, we ask that you kind of put a little bookmark on cases such as this as we kind of go forward. Because as we go forward with our comprehensive plan update, we're gonna look a little closer at some of these areas. And there may be some cases that you feel that this area should continue to be designated for higher density growth. Again, it's future land use. How should the area grow? Or do you kind of move the line in a bit and kind of keep this at another designation more for maybe a lower density at the point? Again, this, I think, what's the term, Mr. Yankee, we use a broad, it's the broad brush painting with the,
I'm ready to make my thoughts on this area.
Yes.
This is a near and dear
Right.
side of town for me. So, yeah, broad paintbrush, exactly.
Yes.
If you zoom out, we are not far from the end of the runway at McIntyre. So you're going to get a lot of aircrafts coming through here. And it's a step in the right direction, their request, if you are looking for it to be denser. But I don't necessarily agree with it being as dense as the future land use map. And that's something we'll put a bookmark on and discuss in the future. But looking at this case alone, wouldn't the staff say it's in the right direction of the comp plan 2015?
you mean the current zoning or the request?
Requests
Um,
going from HM to RT, if staff says that this should be a denser area.
Ideally, if it was going to be denser according to the comprehensive plan, we will look for something a little higher. More, again, we're looking more at the R designations.
Granted that it's a large paintbrush in the area that we're in, I would feel like the yellow should be moved to the west some. And that's something we'll discuss with the 2025 comp plan.
Yes.
As chair, though, it's just opinion. Let's open this up for discussion or motions from the commission here.
You have a question?
Yes, Commissioner Taylor.
Zoom in just a little bit. And maybe not in this particular case, but one of the things I was trying to consider, even when we see similar properties budding up, and though I guess the access, even though they're back to back, the access is on different sides, correct?
Yes, sir. I think it is.
So I guess what I'm driving at, when we're looking at these kind of things, is that something we should also consider, like the access to these parcels? Because even though they're butting together and kind of back to back, could access from one area also be part of the reason for disapprovals, if that makes sense? Or, let me get to. And it's not necessarily in this case, but I know like some of the traffic considerations, access to these particular parcels, even though they may seem very similar to existing parcels. I'm just wondering if that's something we should also consider, not just blanket look at the colors on the map, so to speak.
I think there are a lot of things you should consider when you're looking at these. I don't know if in this particular case, kind of looking at the different frontages for the parcels in this area, really makes a difference for this particular request.
Right, not in this
Yeah.
particular case, but I was just saying, sometimes I think we get stuck on just that it's around the same, you know, that there's the same color or the same designation surrounding it. But if traffic characteristics or things like that come into play, it would be tied to access to those particular parcels. I guess I'm looking at Congaree Road versus Fox Meadow Lane in this particular instance. And those seem to be, you know, pretty much the same kind of characteristics as well, but that's just really for future consideration.
Yeah, I think that the parcels along Fox Meadow, they just happen to be more developed, and more uniform as far as, from a acreage standpoint. Versus if you go on Congaree, I think you're getting into a lot larger tracts that I think development hasn't quite gotten there yet. At least not in the same manner that you may see on Fox Meadow. And is that Horrell Hill, I believe, also Horrell Hill Road. I think it just hasn't gotten to that point yet. So I think, you know, one of the things that we talked about, and this is, again, this is kind of, I guess, kind of jumping ahead, especially as we start getting into the comprehensive plan. I think what you as abiding also with council and their decision on capacity, one of the things you would be looking at is when you come across a situation like this, you may find that maybe the comprehensive plan isn't correct for this area. And so one of the things that we'll probably start pushing a little more, at least as a staff, is that when we find situations like that in which it's deemed that the comprehensive plan is not appropriate at this location, that if you're going to deny requests for that reason or go against the comprehensive plan, that we come back and look to update the comprehensive plan for that area. And I think by doing that, we'll establish more consistency throughout the county, and establishing where and how development should take place.
Thank you, staff. There we go. Commissioner Taylor, just that I was someone that I'm understanding you. You're concerned about traffic on Congaree Road if this parcel was rezoned and then developed with maximum 4 dwelling units?
I mean, that could be something that really wasn't what I was thinking per se, because even though I made the comment, I don't think it necessarily applies here, but I think sometimes we just blindly look at the colors, and if the colors are there, you know, considering, when I first look at the parcel, my thought was, you know, it's right beside all the existing ones, but access to some is on Fox Meadow and others on Congaree. So just not blindly making a decision based on, you know, proximity to other parcels. I wanted to make sure when we're thinking about it and making our decisions that we're considering all those things. And I'm thinking that's, you know, again, why the traffic characteristics and the other metrics that are given are also considered. That was really the main reason. I still kind of agree with what's being said thus far, but I just wanted to be sure, because at first glance, that was my thought.
Thank you. I feel like that was a good point that you brought up.
Yeah, and again, you know, not just this particular request, until we actually get to an updated comprehensive plan, I think one of the biggest hurdles we're gonna run across is when we get into the formal rule zoning designations, because, you know, our comprehensive plan currently just doesn't truly give us any guidelines between AG, HM, RT, and you could even argue R1, which all kind of came about from the former rural zoning designations. So it really doesn't give us any guidelines of, okay, well, this particular area kind of should be even a lower density, say maybe an AG, which requires at least 3 acres per parcel, and then kind of transition back in. So, you know, again, everything now it's either gonna be a low density And if it falls into the low density, the likelihood is the recommendations are gonna be for support of it. If it's not, we're gonna recommend against it.
Okay, Commission, who's going to be my brave commissioner to put a motion out there? Come on, Commissioner Johnson, what do you got? I'll call on you guys.
I mean, what's in my mind is actually going a little bit of a different path, but I don't mind making a motion, but let me ask a squirrely Price. When you were addressing this earlier, I was actually trying to read the equivalency table in our, work session, because I can't remember. The rural areas were broken into 3 broad areas based on landmass.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Without taking too long, I mean, I guess what I'm trying to look at is, for this one ended up being HM, but based on acreage.
Yes, sir.
High level, the other 2 areas were what? Other 2 results, depending on if it was, say, 40 acre, what were the other benchmark?
The AG was 35 acres or larger. The HM was less than 35, but at least 3 acres. And anything less than 3 acres became RT.
What's the relationship between what's allowed under R2 and under HM?
Give me RT and then RT. That's why I included in your package, Commissioner Johnson.
Page 74.
Yeah, I believe that the HM, just, kind of taking a glance, may allow for a few, especially if you're looking at the agricultural and forestry related, you see that it does allow for a veterinarian service.
I asked a poor question.
Okay, I'm sorry.
I asked a poor question. What I was in looking at, I was zeroing in on the residential, I really was trying to see the distinction between the level of density on residential. In other words, right now we're at 1 per acre. So if it was under RT, what would that give us for residential?
1 acre. They're required to have, if under RT is 1 acre, parcel. Yeah, so essentially the HM and the RT are separated by half an acre.
Apologize, I didn't.
Thank you for the discussion.
Mr. Chairman, then if I'm hearing correctly, reading between the lines, while the comprehensive plan as presented is inconsistent with the outcome that's requested in this case, from a fundamental sense of fairness, that it might be appropriate to entertain a motion to approve it despite being inconsistent with the comprehensive plan. So to that end, then, for 24039 MA 1140 Congaree Road, if there is a second, we'll move to approve, send to council with a recommendation for approval.
Thank you, Commissioner Johnson. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Durant. With that, staff, please take a vote.
And that motion, because it's going against the recommendations, that's based on,
Commissioner Johnson, you want to explain your motion?
Based on the density, the trend, what is happening within that corridor in terms of what's happening in terms of actual development, what we're actually seeing versus what's stated as the desired outcome from the comprehensive plan. Taylor said, I mean, it's not so much as simple as just that that's simply what's there, but that's just what seems to be appropriate for that sub-area.
Mr. Price, would you try to paraphrase that?
No, actually like the language. So we have a motion for the approval of case 24-039, based on, because it's going against the the recommendations of the comprehensive plan, but it's due to the trend, in that corridor, as far as character is more consistent than the recommendations of the comprehensive plan.
Thank you, sounds good.
Okay, all right, so those in favor of the motion for the approval of this case, Yonke,
Aye.
Duffy,
Aye.
Durant,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Taylor.
Aye.
Thank you, staff. That moves forward as recommendation approval to county council. October 22nd. They'll have their meeting. Thank you. Then this will move us along to our final case under 5B9, case number 24-041MA. Give it back to staff.
Okay, the next item is, case 24-041MA. The applicant is Norman E. Gross. The applicant, is requesting to rezone on a little more than 40 acres, that's located at 1463 Ridge Road. The applicant is requesting to rezone that parcel from Agricultural District, AG, to Homestead, HM. We're gonna kind of go back where we were. So, comprehensive plan recommends this area, and you know, you can go back and you can see, we're going back to that yellow, for the neighborhood medium density. You can see it goes all the way from Leesburg Road to Air Base Road, and so it encompasses a good, portion of the area along, in the southeast part of the county. Again, staff recommends disapproval of this request as being within the neighborhood medium density designation. The requested zoning, does not promote the recommendations and guidelines of the neighborhood medium density designation. So again, staff recommends, disapproval of this request. And in addition, the proposed rezoning will conflict with the recommendations of the Lower Richland Strategic Community Master Plan for this area, which you'll find on page 88, because it does fall within the master plan area. And the Lower Richland Strategic Community Master Plan identifies this area as the suburban transition area with a recommendation to provide a variety of housing types to include townhomes and apartments. The plan states that new housing development should not be limited to traditional 3/4 of an acre single-family lots, to accommodate shifts in buyer preference. A range of housing options, including single-family townhomes and apartments, is appropriate, and the requested zoning would not support, other than single-family, would not support the townhomes or apartments.
Thank you, staff. Any questions for staff? Hearing none. Commissioner Durant, can you read the names?
Yes, we have one speaker, the applicant, Mr. Norman Gross.
Come on down, state your name and address. We have 2 minutes.
I'm Norman Gross. I live at Ridge Road, 1463 Ridge Road. I have that property that's 40 acres. It was zoned 3/4 of an acre you know, when I bought it 25 years ago. And I bought it knowing that someday I may need some extra money or whatever. I could sell a couple lots off the front. But they just changed it as they were speaking, because it's over 35 acres, it automatically went to AG. All the properties around me are either homestead or RT. To the left of me, to the right of me, Healing Springs has like 18 lots that are RT, and they've got 3 that I think were homestead. To the back of me is a nice subdivision called Marcos Estates. It is broke up between RT and a few homesteads. People to the left of me are homestead or RT, and the people in front of me are all homestead. The difference with what they've changed is now if I have, so somebody wants to buy a lot on the front of my property, which you can see is pretty big on front, road frontage, I'd have to sell a 3-acre lot just, you know, for somebody to have a house. That's a lot to expect for one person to have to buy 3 acres to put up a home. And I think I've got a little more confused listening to you guys asking the questions about the zoning plan and the colors. I'm not sure if they want us to go down or go up, but my property's not conclusive topographically for AG, which is a farm. It's all woods, it's rolling hills, it's creeks. I'd like to keep it that way. You know, I don't think somebody's gonna come in and clear cut that property in front of everything when you got RT and homestead around you. And I'm not quite sure, because down the road, we've got 68 acres that they're gonna put 200 homes on. So all I'm trying to do is keep it within my neighbors. Everybody to the left, the right, and to the front are 1.5 acres or a little bit more. And I would like to keep it the same way, so it fits the neighborhood.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Mr. Durant, is there anyone else signed up to speak?
No one else.
Anyone else miss the sign up list? Come on down, sir. We'll give you 2 minutes. Just state your name and address so that we can write it down.
My name is Eddie Webb. I live on 120 Healing Springs Road. I'm probably about a quarter of a mile or less from his property. And my concern is Ridge Road. Ridge Road is kind of like a cut through to Fort Jackson. So there's a lot of traffic coming through that road between like 6 and 8. The gate on Fort Jackson, gate 5, is open from 6 to 8 in the mornings and from 3 to 5 in the afternoon. So there's a lot of traffic on that road, and a development might mean more traffic on that road, okay? Now, his property and my property, we're probably a mile from Hall Hill Elementary School. So there's school buses going up and down that road, and you have another development, you're gonna have increased traffic on that road. So that's my biggest concern. Thank you.
Sir, could I get your name and address again? I'm sorry.
My name is Eddie Webb. I live on 120 Healing Springs Road. Thank you.
Sir. Everyone that wanted to speak? Okay. Is it open on the floor for discussion, Commission? Question? Comment?
Question.
Go, Commissioner Johnson.
Price. The Lower Richland Strategic Community Master Plan that's referenced, when was that adopted?
We can we'll pull it up for you. March of 2014.
And in layman's terms, that particular master plan is actually calling for more dense development than what would be provided for under the 2015 comp plan or what the applicant has requested. Is that a fair statement?
That is correct. And also, if you take note, Mr. Leahy, go back to what you had previously. You zoom out. You can do a little more. So if you take note, it looks like Lower Richland, or the southeast area of the county, all falls within that master plan. So you could argue almost any request is not gonna be in compliance with the Lower Richland master plan area. Ideally, a master plan should not encompass an entire area of the county, but in this particular case, this one does.
A question for staff. That was the consensus back in 2014, that all over Lower Richland should be more dense.
I believe that was, the push for the representative of that area. I don't know if that necessarily was something that from a staff standpoint that was supported, or maybe from others. Again, it was exclusively for the Lower Richland area, and thus it was more initiated by the district representative at that time.
Area with multiple military bases would want that to be more dense. Question.
I would say the answer would be no. I mean, I think, even as you look at, the comprehensive plan for that area, they conflict with each other, clearly. Looking at the future land use designations throughout that area, when you kind of do a comparison.
Chairman.
Yes, Commissioner Johnson.
Mr. Price, in recent history, the representative from that area and some of the other representatives have been doing more community public meetings. Most recently, as some of the cases have come through, some public meetings about some of the cases.
Yes, sir. I think it's kind of the practice for a number of the council members, including the district representative, to have what they call town halls on these cases. And so there was one held in September. I don't have the exact date, but number of the applicants that have come before you were present at that meeting.
Was this general area and this property
So,
subject of any of those town halls?
yes, so actually, I believe the last two cases that you had were both at the same town hall.
But I'm trying to pull out feedback coming from that town hall that would be.
Okay, sorry about that. Yeah, so, I believe, as I've gotten, a lot of people like to, or they don't necessarily object to it, but then you also have some that actually feel it should remain the same. And so, and when I say remain the same, we're referring to the new zoning designations that came into effect March 1st of this year. So I think everybody was pretty content with the rule previously. And a lot of people, a lot more happier in some of these areas with the evidently a little lower density of the zoning designations found in our current land development code.
I would just comment from my personal experience up here since 2019 that this neighborhood, people do speak up from Ridge Road. And that's why I looked around the room a few times to see if anybody wanted to speak. And I would do that in any case, but not hearing a lot of outcry from the neighborhood suggests this doesn't seem like a big problem for them. Going up and down Ridge Road, it is a road that SCDOT needs to work on. I live in this school district, and I'm sure it needs some assistance as well. So we need to look at our plans with the comp plan moving forward. But we would hear more from other neighbors if they were adamantly against this request today. And looking at the zoning by itself, and Tommy, could you put the zoning back on? This request does look like it would be in character of its surrounding properties. Again, that's my opinion. I'm not. Commission, are we up for more discussion or a motion?
I think just my
Commissioner Johnson, thank you.
as we've navigated through the rewrite process, we restricted a fair amount of more dense development. But this area seems to have survived that in terms of not constricting additionally. So I agree with you, you can make an argument either way. Understanding the request correctly, it would provide less dense development moving forward.
Thank you, Commissioner Johnson. Yes, Commissioner Durant.
All due respect to Commissioner Taylor pointing out that we shouldn't just rely on the colors on the page. If I do that in this one, it seems that the request is simply putting this parcel in making it consistent with everything around it, which would mean the trend of the character is
Commissioner Durant, would you like to re-say that as a motion?
In that regard, I move that we move project 24041 MA to County Council with a recommendation of approval based on the map amendment request being consistent with the existing character and zoning of the properties surrounding it.
Thank you, Commissioner Durant. With that, do we have a second?
Second.
Second from Commissioner Taylor. Staff, please take a vote.
Thank you. All right, so we have a motion for the approval of case 24-041MA. And because that motion goes against the recommendations of the comprehensive plan and it's based on the trend is consistent, the trend of the request is consistent with the character and zoning of the surrounding area. So those in favor of that motion, Yonke,
Aye.
Duffy,
Aye.
Durant,
Aye.
Johnson, Taylor.
Aye.
All right, that motion passes.
Thank you, staff. Recommendation of approval. County Council will take it up October 22nd. That wraps up the B portion of 5. And now staff, please educate us on C, administrative review. Case AR 24001.
So this goes back to our previous land development code. And it is very consistent with our current land development code also, in which an appeal of the determination of, yes, of staff, of planning staff, can be taken to, either the Board of Zoning Appeals or the Planning Commission. Typically, any decision that relates to land development is taken to the Planning Commission. So in this particular case, you, become a quasi-judicial, body. And as such, you have the choices of either upholding the determination of, in this case, the zoning administrator or staff. You can go against, you can go against, the determination of the zoning administrator or staff, also. And as such, again, you are acting as a quasi-judicial. Staff will present the request, to you, will present its findings of the request. And the appellate will then have an opportunity to come and present it. Typically, no one is held to the 2 minutes, on these particular cases. And they will get their chance to present to you, their reasonings, and to object to the determination of staff. This is also a public hearing, so it is open for anyone that may have signed up to speak.
A question for staff, does that make us, since quasi-judicial, is this a final decision, or does this go to county council?
No, you make the final decision. However, anyone that feels aggrieved by your decision can appeal this to circuit court.
Okay, questions for staff before we begin?
Mr. Price, can you just speak?
Commissioner Duffy.
Yeah, there's some background here in terms of litigation that a community resident in Long Creek Plantation sued to block the approval. Contending the planning department did not follow its guidelines and it was tied up in court for 3 years and the approval was withdrawn. Do you have any more background on that or the litigation that took place around this matter?
I think that's something we can get to once we open that up. At this time, I just want to kind of give you kind of a little brief background on the appeal process. And being that you are acting as a quasi-judicial, you will need to swear in all parties that would be testifying, which would include myself.
Okay, thank you, staff. I'm sure you'll walk us through this, right?
Yes.
Okay. Yes, a question?
Yeah, just a question on the process again. We're acting as a quasi-judicial panel. So we can expect opening statements from the county and the applicant?
Yes, sir.
And do we have the ability to question the county in that?
Yes.
Any further questions before we begin, Commission? And it back to over you, Mr. Price.
Okay, yes, I think we haven't really done the swearing in on this one part, but we have an attorney or two up there. Is the basics, swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but truth, so help you God.
There's one of my attorneys up here that want to do this.
I am an attorney, but for the record, I'm not admitted in South Carolina.
Yes, it's the words as a member of the Planning Commission.
You are acting VP today, so go ahead, sir.
And you would also, the applicant would also, the appellate would also need to be sworn in also.
We do it together?
You
or
can do it
what?
together, yes, sir.
Okay, would the appellate like to come up?
Yes, so typically the case, those who are gonna testify, we raise our hand, and then you'll swear us in, and then we can proceed.
Okay.
So, you can go ahead, we can get our.
This, okay,
Get our hand.
at the podium. All right, Commissioner Durant, do you want to take it away?
Price and the applicant, do you swear to tell the truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
I do.
You? So we begin with Mr. Price?
Yes, sir.
Thanks.
So, try to keep this relatively brief, on staff's determination. So on page 97 of your packet, under the request, section 26-181, in which the development that came before staff, which was Lakeside Village subdivision, which is under case files SD 22-006, was the sketch plan, and that is attached, attached on page 100 of your package. You can turn to that if you don't mind that. According to this, to section 181, road standards, it specifically states, it provides provisions for the extension of roads and right-of-ways within developing subdivision. This provision establishes criteria for when roads should be extended to the boundaries of adjoining undeveloped property to allow for the future development of a logical road pattern. Kind of want to make sure I highlight that it talks about undeveloped property. Do you have the aerial for this one? Okay. So the subject site is the one that Mr. DeLage has just highlighted. It was staff's determination simply that this particular development, this parcel, did not extend to an undeveloped parcel. As you will note that there is a golf course that sits between this parcel and the adjacent one above it. Because of the incompatible characteristics of a golf course in a residential subdivision, it was not deemed to be logical to require connectivity between those two. Thus, it was staff's determination that based on that section of of section 26-181, again, 26-181(3)(b), and you will find that on page 98, where it says access to undeveloped property. Being that the property is developed, it may not have a building on it, but it is developed for a specific use, and that was a golf course. The staff felt that it was not required to have connectivity.
Commission questions at this point? Can we do that?
Yes.
Just so we're understanding the case. Property highlighted in, the golf course is highlighted right now. It was developed, obviously,
Yes, sir.
first, because
That-
the other area is not developed. And there was no need per staff or the county to have there be a connection between the two.
Correct. Yeah, I think if the.
We cut through the county cut through a parcel?
Not a parcel that the county doesn't own or is not part of a development.
Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, we're working with an untruth here, and I don't know
It's not.
how long should I let this
You will
go
have his
before I can
opportunity
speak?
to speak.
Okay,
Definitely.
absolutely. I want to hear from both of you. We have a golf course that surrounds this area, and we're highlighted on this blue property now. The property north of it, same owner,
It was.
has to do with this? It was, okay.
At one point, this was all under the same ownership. As you can see, the piece that Mr. DeLage has highlighted is not part of any of the other developments at this time.
Yes, Commissioner Durant.
Question, Mr. Price, where on this map is the area that would have been connectivity?
Right where Mr. DeLeach has his, the mouse. That particular section shows us as a, I believe a golf cart path, for the golf course.
Mr. Price, did you explain to us at least your opening statement here so I can hand it over? Let him have his opening statement?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Take it away, sir.
Okay.
What's your name?
Thank you very much. I represent Fairways Development, which has been a developer in Richland County since 1980. We've developed a little over 1,000 acres in this area right here. I'm very familiar with the development plan approval process. And unfortunately, this piece of property has been a real issue with the county. In 2008, when the real estate market crisis hit, we'd been developing for about 24 years, I guess, at that point. And we stopped and we sold tracts of land because we were, and honestly, afraid to keep developing after that point. So this piece of land, you see in a blue line right there, is a 20-acre parcel that we sold to another developer, and he optioned the contiguous piece of property, and it is contiguous. I keep hearing that it's not contiguous, but it is. For years, it was taxed as a 100-acre parcel of land. We carved off 20 acres, sold it. That buyer took an option on the remaining acres. He then submitted a plan, which you mentioned, so I guess you all have read the letter that was submitted with the package. The original buyer took an option on the remaining 80 acres, and submitted it as one development plan to the county in 2015, I believe it was, one 100-acre parcel. The county approved that 100-acre parcel, which had 20 and 80 acres connected together at one point. That approval was litigated by a resident of Long Creek Plantation who sued the county for allowing too much density in that 100-acre parcel. And he kept that in court for 3 years, and the county finally withdrew its approval of that 100 acres. So the point I'm trying to make is that piece of property was submitted as a 100-acre piece of property to be developed at one time. And that plan was approved as a 100-acre parcel of land. Even though there was a line separating the 20 and the 80, that developer was saying, I'm going to develop the whole 100 acres, and here's how I'm going to connect those two pieces right through that area where the little hand is next to the line up there on the screen. That's how that plan was shown. I don't know whether Mr. Price has that plan that he could show or not, but that plan was approved as a 100-acre parcel. So at that time, there was no question about the 20 and the 80 being connected. It was submitted as one parcel of land for approval. When I sold the 20 acres to this particular buyer, we used the same attorney, and that attorney prepared the contract. And in that contract, because I'm a reasonably experienced, intelligent developer, I knew that if somebody bought the 20 acres but didn't buy the rest of it at that time, there was a chance they would not complete the entire purchase. So we spent more time in negotiating that contract, discussing the easement through the 20 acres in the event that they do not purchase the 80 acres. We've got to have access. Otherwise, the 80 acres you see there on the other side of that blue line is landlocked. The only access to that 80 acres is through the golf course, which means either you close a hole or you close the whole golf course or whatever. If that access is denied, there's no other way to get to the 80 acres. So we spent a tremendous amount of time discussing that easement, how it would be done, who would pay for the road, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It was the largest part of that contract was the easement agreement. We used the same attorney, the attorney who had been our attorney for all the years that we developed this property here. We used the same attorney. That attorney drew up the contract, closed the transaction with the easement in it, but he did not record the easement agreement after the closing. Since then, we have been trying to get the original purchaser of that 20 acres, who is not the current owner of the 20 acres, to agree that there was an easement agreement understood between the parties. Unfortunately, when we went back to the attorney to say, hey, you made a mistake here, we've got to correct this issue with the easement. The attorney's file on this particular transaction, the contract had disappeared out of that file. There was no contract. We went to his computer, which had prepared the contract. There was no copy of the contract in his computer. So the original purchasers about that time got amnesia about the easement agreement. They just couldn't remember if there really was an easement agreement or not. So since they decided not to buy the 80 acres, they decided later to sell the 20 acres. And when it became evident that they were going to sell the 20 acres, we went back again and said, look, we've got to define this easement agreement, because if we don't, we're going to end up with 80 landlocked acres, which you had intended to buy. So no agreement was reached. Again, everybody kept saying, well, I don't remember anything about an easement. So I hired an attorney to try to get an agreement worked out on the easement from the 20 acres to the 80 acres. And we had agreed to file a lis pendens on the property to stop the sale from the original purchaser from us to the second purchaser. And when he got there to file the lis pendens, he found out that the sale had closed 2 hours before. So now the current owner of the 20 acres is denying any knowledge of an access from the 20 acres to the 80 acres. And that is the only access through to a public road. And so we're here today because the current owner of that told Mr. Price that those two pieces of property were not connected. Because I had visited Mr. Price before the plan came in, and I said, when this plan comes in, there's probably going to be an effort to leave our 80 acres landlocked. And so I said, I'm hoping that your standards in the county over the years, which I have recognized in all of the different approvals I have applied for, development approvals, that the county looks at having contiguous properties have connectivity through to main arteries. And so I said, I hope when you get to this plan, you will consider that relative to the 80 acres that could be landlocked. And he said, I can't make any guarantees, but that is something we always look at. So the plan was approved without requiring any connectivity through to the 80 acres. And I am here to tell you that the county has argued with me over and over that the two pieces of property are not connected, and they are connected. They're connected at one property line. You see two lines there. That second line is an easement for a golf cart path crossing between the hole on the eastern side of the property to the hole on the western side, I guess southwestern side of this 20 acre parcel. But the 20 acres is definitely connected to the 80 acres. There's one property line through between the two of them. So basically what we're asking for is that the roadways in the 20 acres be extended to the edge of the property line so they can be connected to the 80-acre parcel.
I hear a commissioner with a question. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes, well, before I ask my question, let me ask a initial question, please. Truly, what is, and I hate to use the word legally, but what is at issue? Because the applicant is stating two components of it. So, Mr. Price, from your vantage point, the relief that is being sought is for what?
The applicant is requesting a required connection to, I guess, that center parcel. If you click the one right there that Tommy had highlighted.
Oh.
For future, so if that property is developed, they would be able to connect to the 20-acre tract that's being developed now, and it's also, the plan is included in your packet for access.
And for the applicant, my question, if Mr. Price's statement of the issue about the connectivity, you said your attorney drafted the easement document.
The attorney who represented both parties, the buyer and the seller, drafted the easement agreement, yes.
So what's presented to us in the section on access to undeveloped property, part of the provisions of making such provision is for a 10-year escrow to be placed. So did your attorney place the 10-year escrow?
I'm not sure what you mean by that.
Access to undeveloped property, subsection B2, reservation of road connections. In the case, in certain situations, development may permit a lot to be reserved for future connection in lieu of construction of actually constructing the road, my words. In a case, an escrow account will be established in favor of the county for a 10-year period, an amount to be determined by the county engineer to cover the cost of construction. So if an easement was prepared, then there would have been an escrow placed.
Now, the cost of the road, according to that easement agreement, would be shared between our company if we had to develop the 80 acres, if they didn't buy it.
I don't disagree with you, but what I'm saying though,
Yeah.
but as a part of that process of that easement, if that easement was put in place, they would have required an escrow.
I don't know anything about the escrow. We were not looking to the county to do the road work. The road work was going to be done between us.
I understand that,
Okay.
but I'm saying, from a permitting standpoint, am I not reading that correctly, Mr. Price?
So I will show you, Tommy, you go to that site plan.
Okay.
Let me rotate that. Okay, and go. Okay, zoom in a little bit more. And one more. All right, so if looking at lot, I believe that's 81. No, 51. My eyes are bad. I apologize.
Highlighted that with a
That's just difficult to see overall. Can we zoom in again?
Okay, 51. So on that development, Lakeside Village, if it was determined that connectivity would have been required to an undeveloped parcel, with the section that you're referencing, the developer could either go ahead and construct the road and dead it in and have a dead end at the property line, or they could just leave that section undeveloped, but they would then do an escrow so that when it was time to develop it, the funds would be there for the county to then, for it to be constructed to allow for the connectivity. Yes, so, but that would have been done by the developer of Lakeside Development, not necessarily by the seller of the adjacent parcel.
Can,
I thought he said that the same attorney represented both parties.
no, that was the first sale of the 20 acres. The same attorney represented both. The property then sold again from the first buyer to a second buyer. And he's saying that it would have been the responsibility of the second buyer to do that.
First sale of the 20 acres is where we're saying the easement was not recorded.
Right. And what I'm, under the agenda here, under the administrative review, Mr. Price put down this section 26-181, which requires the roadway that, I guess the county could require the roadway to be taken to the end of the property. That's basically what we're asking to do, is get the roadway to the end of the property. We can connect to it at that point. And all I'm saying is, in the case I'm making here today, is the county did not require that to happen when they approved that plan. Knowing that there was a piece of property, a large piece of property, valuable piece of property that would be landlocked by not requiring the road to be taken to the end of the property.
No, sir. But because both, excuse me, can you go to the aerial, Mr.? Zoom out a little bit. So if you're looking at this, you're really looking at four sections. There's the two that you see highlighted there. So if the golf course is, I mean, if we're saying that you can't cross over because of the golf course, then those parcels itself, both of those are landlocked already. Especially the one at the top portion, go up to, you're right there. That one would be deemed to be landlocked also.
That parcel that you're just referring to, part of the 100?
Yes, sir. That was part of the 100. So, and again, being that that parcel, Tom, can you just double click on that again? All right, so that being that parcel, and click on the golf course. They're under the same ownership. So if this is gonna be developed, the golf course and those remaining parcels are under the same ownership. So.
And why are we here?
Because the applicant, he made an appeal.
Questions for the applicant? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
So including Club Colony Circle, which appears to dead into that.
So Club Colony Circle, because it is a private road, if a development were to take place and the intent was to turn the roads over to the county would not accept those into our inventory because the county would not use private roads as a means to access public roads. So Club Colony Circle would also need to be either brought to county standards and then deeded to the county for the future development of a site, or they would have to provide another means of access into those for the development of those parcels.
Oh, go ahead.
Just make sure I'm hearing correctly. The residual two portions of those parcels and the golf course are under some form of common ownership.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
The golf course and the two remaining properties, I mean, the 80 acres are under the same ownership, yes. But there is no access through the golf course to the 80 acres.
Couple questions for that. You said earlier, I think, that the properties were considered contiguous for a long time. And when it stopped being considered contiguous when you got the easement or tried to get the
No,
easement?
it was, we sold the 20 acres originally with the understanding that that is our access to the public road. That 20 acres is our access. The frontage on that 20 acres is the only access for the whole 100 acres to a public road. So when we sold the 20 acres off, we knew that we were cutting the 80 acres off from road access. That's why we developed an easement agreement in that contract to give us access through the 20 acres to the 80 acres. And through mistakes made by attorneys, it didn't happen. It didn't get recorded. And so we were left without access. We assumed that the buyer of this piece of property would grant us access through the 20 acres, but they have not.
Because the easement never got recorded, that means it doesn't exist.
Excuse me.
Because the easement never got recorded, does that mean it doesn't exist?
I guess that it doesn't exist. We can't find record of it at this point. And the attorney has dementia. He doesn't remember anything about it, unfortunately. And he has been in that state of mind for some number of years now. So we tried to get him to bring it back. He can't understand where the files went, why it didn't show up in his computer, et cetera, but it just didn't.
One final question, follow on from Mr. Johnson earlier. What exactly are you asking this plant panel to do?
I'm asking this panel to ask Mr. Price to require the developer of the 20 acres to extend his roadways to the edges of the property so we can connect to it from the 80 acres. As required in provision of section 26-181B.
Commissioner Duffy.
Just to follow up on my colleagues, on the same attorney that you used, obviously that sounds like it presented a significant conflict of interest, but the attorney didn't record the easement agreement, and then obviously the attorney was acting for both parties, so it's extremely unclear where things stand. And obviously, is there no recourse between yourself and the attorney who acted for you at the time? Was there nothing done to try and, if there was an easement agreement in the legally binding contract, would that up in file somewhere or in a circuit court or something?
The contract was not filed. It was filed in his office, and somehow it disappeared out of the file in the office. I suspect some deviousness in there. The people who bought the 20 acres originally from us would enjoy the fact that the 80 acres might be landlocked. And I guess the current owner would like to see it landlocked as well. So it is a large, valuable piece of land that would produce a lot of tax revenue for Richland County if it were developed.
Johnson. Microphone.
For the 20-acre parcel, is there an approved site plan for that parcel?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and is that what's?
Yes, sir.
What's on, okay. And this is a separate plan from the plan that the applicant has said that the courts threw out?
Yes, sir. May I elaborate a little bit on that?
Please.
He is correct. That at one time, and Mr. Delage, if you go back to the aerial, there was a sale for all of that property. Not the golf course, but the 3 parcels that you see there, kind of like dinosaurish looking shape there. And we had an approval. There was a resident of the area that protested against our approval. We did spend some time in court, and the applicant did withdraw. We did rescind. We ended up having to rescind our approval. Thus, that original approval was voided, so it was not there. So if we go back to what you have before you, it seems like at some point, it might have been under the same tax map number. It was deemed to be one parcel, one tax map number, one parcel, even though the golf course runs between it. That 20-acre tract was sold separately. It was sold separately, and so it was looked at that it's not necessarily landlocked because, again, one, it was under the same ownership, the golf course and the remaining parcels. Secondly, we didn't feel that it was necessary for connectivity because there was an incompatible land use that was between those 2 uses. also probably one of the things too, when we're just kind of talking about the development, even if there was a connectivity required between the 20-acre tract and the remainder, when the other portions are developed, they would also have to provide a secondary means of access also into that development. So at some point, more than likely, either another road would have to be constructed, another emergency, either through emergency access or just another full-blown road to get to the remainder of the parcels, or the access would have to be provided to Club Colony Circle, in which those roads would all then have to be deeded over to the county, and they could not remain private.
Yes. Johnson.
The applicant's relief requested in terms of the requirement of road access from this parcel, but site plan that's reflected in our package, those rights are fully vested in that owner as presented?
Yes.
It is my contention that the county made a mistake by not enforcing 26-181 and requiring that person, that owner of that property, to extend the roads to the ends of the property. And our company's been a victim of a conspiracy that's been going on for some time, trying to landlock this property. The golf course was designed by Pete Dye. And some of you may have an interest in golf, you may not. He's probably the most notable golf course designer in the world. Richland County is lucky to have a golf course designed by the best designer in the world. For us to say, well, okay, we'll just cut a hole through the golf course somewhere so we can put a road into this 80 acres would not do justice to the golf course. And so to say, well, it's in the same ownership, but it's a totally different entity. It's a standalone entity that really cannot be carved up and be the same as it was.
And
This is great. Go ahead, Commissioner Johnson.
So let's assume that's the case in terms of the connectivity between this 20 and that parcel. Then where's the connectivity to the other parcel?
It's through, there's a road, well, there's common land through between there. Are you talking about to the third parcel? There is connectivity through there.
Your parcel is part of the 80? Excuse me.
Yeah, the third parcel is part of the 80.
Okay.
There are two parcels that make up the 80 and one parcel makes up the 20.
So there's connectivity to the golf course on the, I guess, north side, but not on the south side?
It's actually, there's an area between two holes on the golf course that's open. It's just an open stretch of property that holds the whole thing together, but it has no consequence on the golf course. The road would be put through that open area in there. And it's, I wish I had the design that was originally submitted showing the design of the whole 100 acres together, which the county approved. The county approved it with a road going right through hole number 10 and hole number 11, right where, just below where the hand is on the screen there right now. That was the access that was presented to the county, and the county approved it. That was back in 2015.
From what you said, it would still be cutting through this beautiful golf course into two separate sections.
Yeah, there's no, with that design, there's no cutting through the golf course.
What's going on with Flycatcher Lane? Is that a public road, Mr. Price?
it is.
Flycatcher Lane's down on,
Does that connect to the northern landlocked parcel?
No, sir.
no, there are two lots past the end of Flycatcher Lane right there. Yeah, that's Flycatcher. There are three lots past the end of Flycatcher that prevent connection to the property at that point.
How many, could you click on that larger parcel? Is it the same ownership, different ownership? Different ownership, okay. Commissioners, questions? I didn't mean to just jump in.
Yeah, just also for the record.
Hold on, Mr. Price. You guys good? Okay, Mr. Price, go
Just
ahead.
for the record, and it is noted on page 97 of your packet that, that those parcels that connect to Flycatcher Lane, were formerly owned by Fairways Development, and they were sold. So they subdivided and sold. Does that kind of help create an additional, I guess you can call it land liking of the parcel, if that's the case, because that actually would have provided access from that particular part of this, I guess, the remaining 80 acre tract, because Flycatcher is a county road.
Yes, Commissioner Durant.
Questions for Mr. Price, representing the county. Price, does the county understand exactly what the applicant is seeking here?
Yes.
And assuming, just for argument's sake, we favored the applicant, is the county legally able to grant what he's asking for?
I think we will probably end up in some form of litigation from the developer of the parcel. I mean, that's not necessarily our issue for making our determination, but to answer your question, I'm sure there would be essentially some litigation from them regarding.
What harm would the county suffer in the event you had to grant?
There would be a cost. Of course, we would have to go to court to defend our actions.
And
I think you want
pull
to.
that back up one more time, I'm sorry. I'm trying to see Club Colony Circle again. I understand that's a private road, but there was a scenario where that would have to become public at some point in the conversation.
Yes.
Which would provide access to the third parcel, which, and the applicant says there's connectivity between the third and the second parcel.
I can partially answer.
Go
I
ahead,
can
sir.
partially answer that question. We approached the community association that owns Club Colony Circle and asked them if we could develop just a small portion of that area that faces on the other side of that golf hole that you see right there. And they said, no way, we don't want anything else developed. We own the road, we're not gonna grant even a small portion of land to be developed off of our private drive. So they closed us down pretty quickly when we requested that.
So it would seem like that parcel couldn't be developed.
And
Commissioner Duffy.
Just a question for you, Mr. Price. Is there any precedent to what this gentleman is asking for on other developments in the county that you've seen, or is this a unique or one-of-a-kind situation?
I mean, one of the things that there's, as he stated, it's in our codes for both previous code and our current code, that anytime a development comes in and there are adjacent, joining an undeveloped larger tract, we aren't gonna make somebody connect to a 1 acre tract or something along those lines. But if they're adjacent to another tract that potentially could be developed residentially, we do require them to connect, or at least provide a means for connectivity. So,
Go ahead.
I have spent 9 months trying to resolve this matter without litigation. I've tried every reasonable method I can. I approached Mr. Price before this plan on the 20 acres came to him, and I said, I have a suspicion that they're going to try to landlock the 80 acres when they bring this plan into you. So please be cognizant of that fact. And so obviously connectivity is going to be important here to us. And again, I say 26-181 requires the county where two pieces of property connect, and requiring one of the property owners to extend the road to the end of the property so an adjacent property can connect to it. It didn't happen here. And I'd prefer to handle this without litigation. I've been to Mr. Price, who I've known for many years. I've been to Eric Jensen. I've been to everybody except for the county manager to see if there's some way we can resolve this matter without having to go to litigation. But it's too valuable a piece of property for us to let it go. So if we can't resolve it here, we probably will have to litigate it. I've run out of other solutions at this point.
Yeah, again, I think if the applicant, I think the applicant may agree that that back portion can't be developed. The third parcel, that right there. And it looks like, I think based on the testimony, that parcel can't be developed at this point. So we're not really talking about the full 80 acres.
Go ahead and click on that, Tommy.
And I'm only saying that because the applicant has stated that, about going across the golf course, something that's, I don't believe that's something that's practical for the development of the site. So if crossing golf course isn't practical, then you can't really develop that site. But if you can go across the golf course, then that means you can go across the other portions of it, which again, are under the same ownership.
Johnson.
The transfer that Mr. Price referenced at the end of Flycatcher Lane, yeah. What's the date of those conveyances relative to the date of splitting up this other 20 acres?
Correct, 2016, when it changed airways? That was 2008.
Chairman, was the second sale of, when was the first sale of the 20 acres done?
In 2012.
That property was sold again with the understanding that there was going to be that there was an easement agreement through the 20 to the 80. And there was an agreement. There isn't any question about it. Unfortunately, we're not in a position to prove it.
Any further questions? Staff, from this, we would, I took notes from earlier, we would either uphold the staff's decision or go against it, and we would do that through a motion.
Yes, sir.
When you say uphold staff's position, what position?
Staff?
Yeah, so essentially, I know you've heard a lot. You've heard a lot about the sale of the property. You've heard a lot about, previous development of the site and so on. But really what we're looking at is essentially section 26-181, when it referred 26-181 3B, when we're talking about access to undeveloped property. Again, as staff is, upon staff's review of this, is not undeveloped property. I believe even the applicant has stated, the design of the golf course. I think he's referred to more than just a piece of land that's just there. So with that being said, we deem that to be a developed piece of property that was not compatible with the residential development that you have before you of Linkside Village, and thus connectivity was not required according to the code. So we really didn't get into the other matters. It's really this particular section talks about connectivity when it's logical. And at this point, because it was a budding portion of a golf course, regardless of how that section was being used, it was just deemed not to be logical or compatible and thus not required.
Sir, what's your response to that?
My response is that for some reason, Mr. Price has it stuck in his head that the property ends at the end of that property line on the 20 acres and that there is golf course between the 20 acres and the 80 acres. There is not. There is no golf course between the 80 acres and the 20 acres. They are there, but there is a passageway through for a roadway to go into the 80-acre piece of property that was submitted in a plan to the county 10 years ago, which they approved. That property is connected at that point. There is not golf course intervening between those two pieces of property.
What's the distance between those?
Mr. Johnson?
Apologize.
Trying to help our staff. Thank you.
The area between the yellow line and the blue line is an easement for the golf cart path. You can see the sand trail going through there. That is a golf cart path. The properties connect at that blue line. The 80 acres and the 20 acres connect at that blue line. That is not an interruption. That is an easement for a golf cart path.
Is our parcel map incorrect?
No, sir, I don't believe it is.
And there's no proof of this easement?
I think it's, unless the applicant can show that that there is connectivity between the two and that there is not essentially separated by the golf course, as you see before you. Unless that's something that can be brought to us, and we contend that there is a separation between those two bodies.
Looking at the map, if the parcels are correct, we see a 26-foot gap there. Commissioners, we all see that? Okay. Okay, go ahead, sir.
I can prove that the two parcels connect at that blue line.
What evidence do you have to provide as
Surveys.
proof?
I don't have it with me, but I can
Okay.
produce surveys that will show that that is a common line between two pieces of property.
You're saying that the northern yellow line border does not exist, and it should extend and touch.
Right, right.
Mr. Price?
A recorded plat would prove that there's no separation between those, that they connect. A survey is something that can just be drawn, but if it's not actually recorded, then it's really just a conceptual plan.
You have a recorded plat, sir?
Yes.
Mr. Price and staff, how legal are the parcels in our database? We're right in my world now of GIS. Like, when we look at these lines, they're reviewed through county administrators and posted online. Are we looking at something that's not accurate, where we need to refer back to a written plat?
If that's the point of contention for your decision-making, I would make a recommendation to the planning commission to defer this until your November meeting, and at such time allow the applicant to actually bring in a recorded plat showing these, showing this is one. If that is something that you feel you need to make your decision.
Commission, you want to discuss that?
That's a reasonable path, you know.
Sir, would you be willing to defer this to our next meeting?
I've been deferring forever. I'll defer one more time, absolutely.
That would help your case if the two
Yeah.
touch.
Right, right.
Okay, as chair, I'll make a motion to defer this case till our next meeting. What's the date of that, sir? Staff, November 4th. That is Commissioner Duffy. Do we have a second for a motion of deferral?
Second.
Commissioner Taylor seconds. Staff, please take a vote.
All right, those in favor of the motion to defer to the November 4th, 2024 PC.
This is on the basis of the applicant is going to provide more
Provide you with
information. Thank you.
So we wouldn't need to necessarily go back through this exercise again. You just really just need that, I believe, if that is part of your request. But those in favor, Yonke,
Aye.
Duffy,
Aye.
Durant,
Aye.
Johnson, Taylor.
Aye.
And that motion passes.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for discussion today, sir.
I just want to thank you for your careful consideration of this matter because it is extremely important. Thank you very much, all of you.
Speaking on behalf of myself, I really care about our county. I want to make good decisions for it. So we can take the time to do this.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Final thoughts, Commission, on this? We could wait until November to talk again. Okay? Yeah. Commissioner Johnson, go ahead.
To the applicant, I would just say, there are two key pieces of disposing of this. One, we're addressing in terms of seeing this recorded plat, but the other, I would just, from an evidentiary standpoint, just ask you to be prepared to address. It sounds as if the section of the code that was given to us in our material, that it was the second conveyance that did not make the appropriate securing of a future road. So there's an intervening transaction there. And so from my standpoint, I'm just one member of the panel, I'm gonna wanna understand that a little bit better. I don't mean tonight, I just mean just when we have this conversation.
Okay, well, I think the second owner did not want it to happen, so that's why they made no effort to secure. I don't know whether their intent is to leave that landlocked, thinking they're the only ones that can buy it, because they're the only ones that have access. And I've had it sold 4 or 5 times if I can get the access worked out.
One final thing, sir. I don't think we got your name on the record.
I signed in here, but I'll give it to you again. I signed in on the sheet.
Auntie, pronounce your name for me?
Last name is Bacus, B-A-K-H-A-U-S.
Yep, we have it. Thank you.
Okay,
Okay, we'll see you in November.
okay. Can't wait.
One final question from
Nice,
Mr.
Commissioner.
Price. There's no active litigation right now before you all on this, but there's the threat of potential down the road. Okay.
I guess so, yes, sir.
So you'll be getting legal advice prior to coming into our next meeting, or if there's more questions on what way we go
I
on
mean,
this?
at this point, we would just bring you in the plat.
Yeah,
it-
exactly,
it's
and then
provided
if
to
there's
us.
follow-up. Okay, thank you.
Okay, we're gonna move on to number 6 in our agenda, which is other items.
Okay,
And we have Olympia Mills Neighborhood Character Overlay Update.
yes, so, I guess short, we've gone over the character overlay. We've gone over this for quite a while, and you've looked at the language that's being proposed. And I think some of you were able to actually go on the tour of the Olympia area, just kind of as a means that you could see how some of those, how some of the language that's being proposed relates to the area. At this point, unless there's something that the planning commission, some additional information that you need, or you want to point us in a different direction, what we will begin doing is preparing to have a couple of community meetings with the property owners that will be affected. We will provide notifications to them and establish a couple of meetings where we can kind of outline what this request, what the proposed neighborhood character overlay is and will be in this particular area. And after that, then we would then begin a public hearing back with the planning commission. You will look to review the language and give its approval and forward it to the county council. Of course, that will be after the public is allowed to speak on it.
Questions regarding that, Commission? Sounds like a good path forward. Thank you.
Okay.
Any other items for discussion under this section?
Yes, I don't know if everybody's had the opportunity to meet Ms. Williams, Cynthia Williams. She's the new director of the Community Planning and Development. Also, that also entails being the planning director. She is present here, and she will give you a comprehensive plan update at this time.
Thank you.
If you don't mind, I'll stand up. My foot's falling asleep. So good afternoon. I'm Cynthia Williams, the new Director of Community Planning and Development. I've been here a month, and we've been working really hard on getting the comprehensive plan process started. We've got Nealon Planning on board. They're the consultant that'll be helping us through this process. We've had several kickoff meetings with them, and we've scheduled bi-monthly meetings with Nealon Planning so that we can continue to give updates. Right now, we are working with them to finalize the project schedule and identify the outreach techniques we're going to be using. They recommended putting together an advisory council, this advisory committee. This advisory committee is not to take the place of planning commission or county council. They are mostly to assist us with getting public input and champion the plan to the public. So we've been asking county council to consider representatives to sit on this advisory committee. The advisory committee, like I said, they'll just kind of go through some of the recommendations and the feedback and vet that information before we present it to you all at Planning Commission. You still make the ultimate recommendation to County Council to approve or disapprove the comprehensive plan. We're also looking at several in-person and virtual ways that we can receive input from the public regarding the comprehensive plan. So we'll be finalizing that with Nealon Planning in the upcoming few months. And they do want to do a tour of the county. So we will be bringing the consultant team in, taking them around the county so they can see some of the development pressures that we have, the way growth is happening in Richland County, so that they can take that in consideration as they're getting this public feedback. The plan will be split up into 3 parts. This first phase, they're doing data gathering, so they're pulling previous plans, the old comp plan, the land ordinance. They're looking at GIS data to kind of just get a baseline of where we are. Then they'll be putting together those recommendations, getting a lot of input based off of the data they've gathered, and then finally they'll have a draft plan that they'll be presenting to the public and Planning Commission for consideration. So we're hoping to get this process taken care of in about a year, because the plan has to be updated every 10 years, so the deadline is by the end of 2025. So we'll be moving quite swiftly with trying to get that public input.
Question.
Commissioner Taylor?
How many members are you looking for the advisory committee, did you say?
The recommendations just have about 12 to maybe 14 members on the advisory committee. We will be also holding a stakeholder meeting. So for instance, Planning Commission, instead of having you on that advisory committee, having you participate in a stakeholder group or a focus group discussion, that way we can get direct input from you all from your point of view as Planning Commission members and members of the community. So you'll probably be interviewed from that focus group status, Whereas being on that advisory committee where they'll just be vetting a lot of the different data that we're gathering and all of the input that we're receiving. And also, if we're putting together messages, we want to run it through the advisory committee to make sure our messages are clear. That was, we put it back out to the community.
Any further questions? Thank you for joining the team. We're happy to have you here.
Glad to be back in Richland County. I was here before, and so I'm glad to be back. So thank you. And thank you all for your service on the Planning Commission. I do appreciate your efforts.
Mr. Price, anything else under number 6?
No, sir.
Okay. I will get to number 7, which is Chairman's report. I just want to say thank you guys for all the hard work you do. Thank you for the Olympia tour, staff for setting that up. That was great. And for the commissioners that were able to attend. She already mentioned the comp plan work. Well, we're going to get done by the end of next year. So any workshop meetings that we need to schedule as we plan out, let's do that. And that can coincide with, planning commission training sessions and whatever we need as we look ahead at our calendar. And we'll need to look at rescheduling our workshop meeting we were supposed to have today.
Yes. Well, Ash, if you would like, we could, again, just move it to November prior to the meeting. If 4 o'clock is an issue, I don't know, again, putting it together, I think it's something that we could potentially get done in, within an hour. Just depends on questions you have for staff. But it is really up to you, so.
Concern is that we have a small quorum right now, and I would like to hear from those who are missing a time that they can be here for that. So my suggestion would be that we meet normally in November, and then at that meeting, schedule this workshop within a week or two after. This is a suggestion. Best thing?
Yeah, that sounds like a great idea since we're down so many people tonight, yeah.
That's Commissioner Duffy. Guys, what do you think about? Let's see the head nods.
Sounds good to me.
Okay, great. That's the end of the chairman's report then. Thank you. Planning director report. Does he get to come back up? Number 8? No?
Shouldn't have.
Okay.
It's on page 105. It's just the report of county council's actions on cases that you've previously heard and made recommendations on.
All right, that wraps up number 8. Number 9, which is adjournment. Chair would like to make a motion for adjournment. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Commissioner Durant. We'll do this by a roll of hands. Show of hands.
Unanimous?
Unanimous. All right, thank you, staff. Thank you, commission. Adjourned.